what's going on with Deebo Samuel? There was reports that the Niners were including him in trade discussions. It seemed like they were exploring the idea of maybe trading him. Nothing happened. Do you think they're going to keep him this year, or after June 1, they could trade him and free up $22 million in cap space? A little late to do much with the cap space, but they could do it. What do you think? What's next for Deebo Samuel?
I think you'd be naive if you looked at their draft and not think for a second that, hey, you know what, they may move him. I mean, they have a lot of receivers now, and Pearsall's going to make the team. Cowing's going to make the team, and then if you had Deebo and Ayuk and Jennings, that's 5. They only kept 5, right? So that means everybody else, Conley, Ray, not Ray, but Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, anybody else they have basically there's no roster spots for. So I wasn't thinking that it would make sense. If you asked me 3 weeks ago, would they move Deebo after June 1st? No, because they're going for it. They're inside their window, and they're still going for it inside their window. But now you got to wonder, with the way they fortified the wide receiver room, if they could get a player, would they do it if it was the right player? I don't know. I mean, I think it's on the table. I think it's viable that they could move him and save that cap hit by moving him after June 1st, or have that cap savings. It doesn't make sense from the standpoint of they're trying to win a Super Bowl, but look how stacked their receiver room is now, and it's not like you have a lot of latitude here. You're going to keep 7 receivers and go short on your O-line, D-line, or something like that? I mean, that's problematic. So I don't know. I think the draft enables them to move a receiver, and Deebo's the guy who's probably going to get moved unless it's Jennings.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that the Niners wanted to trade Deebo and decided that it would make more sense to trade him for a player than to trade him for a draft pick, because there's so much pressure on them to win a Super Bowl this year. And if they trade him for a draft pick, they can't tell people they got better in the short term. So maybe they say, we'll trade him for a player, and we'll do it after June 1st to save cap space so we can take on the player's contract. That could make sense, because if you look at what they did in the draft, I just don't, I can't understand drafting Ricky Pearsall in round 1 if you don't trade a wide receiver. You're redshirting your first round pick essentially again. Why? When you had other needs on the board. So they took Pearsall, they took another wide receiver, and traded up for a running back with speed. It seemed like they were getting like a smorgasbord, a poo-poo platter, if you will, of players who together might be able to replace what Deebo Samuel gives you.
Well, it's funny, we're talking about Deebo, but in reality, they drafted 2 receivers that both played Jennings' spot. So what's Jennings' status?
I mean, he hasn't signed his restricted free agent tender yet. Why?
Because I mean, that's what Pearsall is. He's a slot guy. That's what the Arizona receiver is. He's a slot guy. So, I mean, you added 2 slot receivers, and Jennings hasn't signed his deal. I wonder if
Pearsall can't play on the outside. That's a terrible pick.
No, I don't. I think he potentially could play on the outside, but I mean, as far as right away, I think Cowing and Pearsall are slot guys.
Yeah,
and Pearsall's a little bit bigger. Cowing is a lot faster. I think those are slot receivers. Now,
if they were to trade Deebo for a player at another position, a corner, a defensive tackle, a starter somewhere else, an offensive tackle, they could say that they're in position. They've positioned themselves to be able to replace him in the offense.
It's hard to even project that because there's so few trades in the NFL. I can't even think.
Right.
Outside of Surtain. Yeah, would you trade Deebo and a pick for Surtain in next year's draft? I would.
Yeah.
I would. I absolutely would.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe
especially with the makeup of the roster right now.